Well, good morning. Actually, it's almost noon. It's 9 after 11. Today is March the 1st, and I am just coming into Maybell, Colorado, just like the sign says. We've got light snow. It's actually not too cold out today. Somewhat pleasant. It's like Oklahoma plates. And we're heading to Meeker. If you can read that sign, it doesn't show Meeker on here, but it's actually, that's where we're headed to today, is Meeker, Colorado. Did I say it's March 1st? Because it is. Did I say it's 11:09? Well, that's actually 10 after 11 now. What else can I say about this day today? As far as I can tell, my app on my phone says we're supposed to get between a trace and 1 inch of snow today. So if that holds true, we're probably going to be fine. We are going to be going up a little pass here. It's probably not officially known as a pass, but I say this all the time, but because there are places where you cross a range, they are actually considered a pass, usually. And that's what this is. We'll be going up right under Escarpment Peak, and our turnoff is right here. The roads so far are pretty good, so I'm pleased to see that. I have a truck behind me. He's probably extremely happy to see me turn, because he's moving pretty good. Looks to me like they got a little bit of a windstorm here yesterday also. Now, I don't know if I'm going to, I do that a lot. I stop with a thought and then I repeat it. Yeah, I've got that. I'm, it's interesting because when I listen to myself talk, I then realize how poor of a speaker I am. You'd think that I would just know it in real time, like when I say it, but that's not how it works. Because I'm thinking, and so I stop and think, and then I go back to that thing that I was thinking about, and I repeat that thing. So that, yeah. I went through the most hellacious windstorm / blizzard yesterday that I've ever been through. And I have seen a lot of bad weather. This was, on a scale of 1 to 10, this was a 10. It was a 10. Well, yes, it was a 10. The reason that I say it's a 10 is because I think anything beyond a 10, you can't even get through, period, right? There's got to be some cutoff. I say that if the difficulty level is a 10, you're still able to get through it. If you can't get through it, then, it's off the scale because you can't get through it. You can't even do it at all. This was almost that bad. The snow that we'll potentially encounter up here, and the ice and slush and all the other things on the road, are nothing compared to what what I went through yesterday. I'll see if I can film it. My intention was to start out filming from Laramie to the state line, Wyoming state line, because I had from Laramie back into Colorado. But by the time I got to the state line, the weather was so bad and interesting that I kept rolling, right? I kept filming, videoing, whatever. And I thought to myself, once the weather breaks, I'll quit filming. Once we have a break in this weather, that would be a good time to end it. But we never, well, we did get a break finally, but it was all the way to the very end of Highway 14 at the turn 2 Rabbit Ears. And ironically, Rabbit Ears was the safe road and the pleasant road yesterday. So, yeah, it was something. I probably passed 50 people yesterday, and I don't understand. Well, it's interesting how slow people will go in those bad conditions when they don't really have to. However, having said that, if they don't have a vehicle with good snow tires, and if they're not used to driving in the snow, and they are not familiar with the route, those are 3 really important things. On top of that, if they're not experienced driving in bad weather, so I have a lot of things. I heard a phone of mine. And by the way, we are just on the west side of Juniper Mountain. This is a really cool spot. I mentioned it a little bit. I did a video going the other way on this road. But like I've said in another video, and it's the truth, when you take a road a different direction, it's truly a different road. And then around here, the weather conditions will add to that, add or subtract, whatever. So today is kind of cloudy. You don't really get to see a lot of the terrain out here, but it's kind of a real sort of lonesome terrain. And we're getting ready to pass a really cool road. This is County Road 32. We'll not be going on for a while. That road will take you all the way back to Highway 13. If you're heading between Craig and Meeker. That's a really interesting road to drive, for a drive, to see the geology of this area, which is pretty neat. Yeah, this looks pretty decent. Well, I will do what I can to capture, or to if at all possible, to put that NorthPark video out. And it's kind of ironic in a way, because I put a NorthPark video out last week of very mild conditions. I mean, the roads were really icy, and I'm sure that for some people that would be enough to keep them off the roads. But what happened yesterday in NorthPark was epic. That was epic. I've never seen it that bad. That's not to say that it hasn't been that bad. I'm sure it has. I'm sure it's probably been worse. But I get through there quite often. I've got a relatively good feel for what to expect up there. And I did not expect what we got. It was something. It was quite something. And something bothered me about that. I passed two people. There were a lot of people on the road, by the way, but I passed two people that were stuck, and I didn't stop. The first person that I passed was an SUV kind of a thing. It looked like it was oncoming, or it had spun around if it wasn't oncoming, but it was over in the left shoulder, but it was at a pretty good angle. It wasn't in any danger of rolling over. But the problem that I saw, knowing that this little car doesn't really have the power it needs to pull something like that out, after having tried to pull vehicles like that out of things even less, I think I was caught on tape trying to pull a 4Runner. I think it was a Toyota 4Runner, and I was having a hell of a time with it. But I realized something about that. Around here, there are a lot of good Samaritans, and they're more than willing to stop and help. I've had people stop and help me, and I will try to stop and help people when I'm sure that I can, or if I think they really need the help and I'm not sure. I evaluate it and try to do my best. But one of the things that I've decided, and one of the things that I watched happen in real time, was that when I was failing to pull that Toyota 4Runner out, vehicles were passing by that could have pulled that 4Runner out. And they were passing by. They probably would have stopped had I not been there. They probably thought that I just had it covered. That's what I would think. I would think, well, they got it covered. I'm not going to stop. So that was my thought yesterday, along with the thought that I didn't want to park in that particular spot. If I put this video out, you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll get to see exactly what I saw as I went through there. But I realized that sometimes you need to let the better vehicle, the more equipped vehicle, stop. Don't take that. Don't hog that space for the glory of being a good Samaritan, when what you might actually be doing is making things worse, because maybe the person that would have stopped, that had the proper vehicle, that could have pulled that vehicle out, now thinks you've got it under control, and they pass on by. So I passed on by. Like I said, there were a whole bunch of people out there. And another thing, my other thought about that was the visibility was so bad. And when I say it was bad, I mean, well, like I say, if I post it, you'll see. You can't get worse than no visibility. So this was where they were stuck maybe 50 feet, maybe more, but maybe not. And depending on the wind, maybe no visibility whatsoever. It was bad out there. But I felt bad about that because I left them. Basically, I felt like I just left them out there, to die. But that's not the case. They probably had someone stop in a very short amount of time, and that person that stopped was very likely somebody that had the right vehicle to be able to get them out. And another thing that I thought of, and I thought of all this stuff really fast as I was going by, I don't have good lights on this car. I mean, I can turn my lights on, and everyone had their lights on. This was pretty bad weather. Even for this area, it was bad weather. Everyone had their lights on, and that really didn't help a lot. It helped some, but not a lot. So I'm wondering if maybe I shouldn't get some some lights to use, on this car in that situation. But then I've got to ask myself the question, what kind of a rescue vehicle is this? Is this something that really, I don't have a winch on this car. I mean, this car is a little lightweight car. It has because it's so lightweight compared to like a pickup truck or something, and so underpowered, I don't know. I think I need to pick my battles, and it might be that if I try to set this up as a rescue vehicle with strobe lights or whatever, you'd have to do so that people could actually see it. Because the issue yesterday was everyone was going slow. But if I'm trying to pull these people out, I've got to be on the blacktop. Well, I've got to be on the tarmac, there's snow on it. And I'm going to be pulling, and when you pull a vehicle like that, if you're spinning your tires, your vehicle kind of goes where it goes. Usually it goes to the points where you get the least amount of traction. That's usually how these things work. So not having good bright lights on, to warn other people that I'm there, it just seems to me like that would have been on the dangerous side, considering the conditions yesterday. So I'm kind of, I need to pick my battles. If I jump in a situation like that and I'm not able to do the job, then at some point I leave or someone shows up and stops to help us out. Kind of like what happened the last time I was trying to pull someone out. Someone else stopped. Okay, so that's fine, but if that happens in an area of no visibility, now you've got 3 vehicles in this area where there's no visibility, and you probably have people wandering around, reaching underneath cars, hooking things up. I mean, the idea that everyone is in danger increases, probably exponentially, for every big thing that's blocking that road. So it's an interesting thing to consider. Like I said, I felt bad. I felt like, I've just left him there to die, but that's not the case. I think that leaving or not stopping, like I said, enabled someone that had the means and the ability, and maybe even the lights, because there are a lot of utility type pickups out there, pipeline, oil field, government, forest service, whatever. A lot of different types of vehicles out there that could have helped those people out that have, these bright lights, so that when they're sitting off the side of the road on a highway, they usually turn those lights on. It's been kind of a phenomena in the last few years where a regular pickup or a private work vehicle will put those lights on their vehicles. I used to laugh about that. I thought it was kind of silly. Like, well, these guys are just playing like they have an official vehicle of some sort. Maybe they've got the lights on it. However, as of yesterday, going through several miles of not being able to see a damn thing, I think that those strobe lights make a lot of sense. I would have never thought about putting strobe lights on this car at all. Like the marker lights, the really high intensity marker lights that would allow people to see you better than your headlights. I would have never thought about doing something like that until yesterday. So I actually think that's a pretty smart thing to do. And I would guess that that's probably who helped those people. And I'm sure that they got helped, and I'm sure they got helped pretty quickly. But like I said, I wasn't there to impede the progress of somebody that could actually get them out. So if there weren't snow falling, you would see Escarpment Peak directly in front of us, kind of across the valley up there. It's really this is such a pretty area. And I passed another vehicle south of Walden, but this vehicle was on the curb. It wasn't over the curb. It was on the curb, and it had just driven into a heavy drift. And there were a couple people out, and the guy was shoveling with a great big snow shovel. He had a big, anyway, they were taking care of it. So there was no point in me stopping there. They would have probably just told me to go on, because there was not much I could really do for them. They didn't really need pulled out. They just needed to get, the thing is that before I would pull anyone out, I would shovel everything out of the way that I could anyway. So that way, you have a better odds of getting them out, but they probably got out pretty quickly. So I did it. I wasn't too concerned about those people. And again, the downside of that would be, well, do I want to stop there? What am I going to do? Stand around and watch this guy shovel? I have 2 shovels in my car, but they're little shovels. They're not big shovels. They had an actually big snow shovel. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe I shouldn't carry a big snow shovel, because really, if you get stuck in a drift somewhere, these little metal shovels are quite annoying. But I can get, I think they're like grain shovels. They're a really big plastic shovel section with a wooden handle or a fiberglass handle. And they'll move a lot of material, and they're pretty tough. But it looked to me like that's the kind of shovel that guy had. And I'm kind of wondering if I shouldn't get one of those shovels. Because had I had one of those shovels, maybe I could help somebody in that situation and do it quickly. Because there's another thing about that. You want to get people out pretty quick. You don't want to clog the spot. So, interesting day yesterday. And I'm evaluating just what kind of a rescue vehicle this really is. Because I've attempted rescue with people before. I've stopped a few times to help people, but I've actually never really pulled anyone out. Come to think of it, there was a guy, I had shovels, he didn't even have shovels, so that was helpful. Now, if that guy would have been stuck and had not had a shovel, I would have probably pulled over, because I have 2 shovels. 2 shovels, while they may not be as good as that big shovel he had, are still better than nothing if you don't have anything. And I'm happy to have the shovels here. It's just that a big shovel makes a lot of sense. I can't really see the edge of the road here. I'm not even sure where it's at. But we just dropped down into a really neat little valley. Kind of a high mountain valley. It's probably about 7,000 feet roughly through here. And the valley drains to the southwest. We're basically heading east right now. This valley drains to the southwest. It drains down towards Rio Blanco County is south of here. I think it drains down to the White River, which is south of here, probably by 20 miles maybe. White River, which by the way runs through Meeker. I'm sure that because the camera can't swivel around and look like, you could if you were actually sitting in this car. I've counted around 20 cabins down this road. I would call them historical. Of course, the landowner might call them a nuisance. I don't know. But they're very neat. This is a neat old area that I think was settled quite a long time ago. Maybe for farming, maybe for ranching. maybe for a little of both. But geologically, it's pretty cool. I think it's part of the Grand Hogback, and I think that's the name of the hogback that goes all the way from north of Meeker all the way down to I-70, and then it runs along I-70 for maybe 40 or 50 miles. I think it crosses I-70. There's one of those old cabins. Sadly, you can't see it, but the roof of it is getting more sway backed all the time. It will eventually, nature will take it. Nature has a knack. If you're not fixing up something, nature takes it back from you. Here, when we get to the top of the hill, we will leave Moffat County, and we will drop down into Rio Blanco County. And I don't remember what the county road is, but we'll see it shortly. The conditions on this road aren't bad. The snow's a reasonable surface, not real shiny. We are somewhat warm, but there's enough cloudiness to keep the sun from warming it up even more. Having said that, there's enough UV out there that it's creating steam. Well, it's condensing some of the water on the roads back into a vapor. So we do have the warmth that we didn't have a couple of months ago, but this is the 1st of March, and this is a warmer storm. Anyway, yesterday was a wild ride, and I am incredibly impressed with the handling ability of this car, the way that it's set up. This car was not the limiting factor yesterday as far as speed. This car could have gone a lot faster yesterday and stayed on the road. However, I couldn't see the road. I just simply couldn't see the road. And I was going from maybe 55 or 60 down to maybe 2 or 3 miles an hour. And sometimes I had to do that in a big hurry. And in a way, I'm glad that a lot of the people, well, everyone that I encountered, other than a few people at the very end of 14, I passed. And nobody was following me, which was good because I would have to brake heavily. You know, when the conditions got whiteout conditions, I couldn't see anything. I obviously just got to put the brake on. If I would have had people behind me doing that, they would have been endangering me. I would have been endangering them. It would have been a really bad thing. But in a way, it kind of worked out. More than likely, I wasn't the only person that was going faster than the majority of the traffic. There were probably quite a few people that were leapfrogging, you know, the middle of the bell curve, everyone going really slow. But we were all probably doing a similar speed, which is good because it kept us all spaced out. I had one dangerous moment, and I should have known. I was passing, I just got into Colorado actually for a couple of miles, coming down a mountain, this mountain pass. And on a straightaway, where I was able to see, just barely, but I was able to see, I think it was a car and two trucks I needed to pass. I passed the car, and I just kept in the left lane because I was watching, down range to make sure that it wasn't a vehicle. Then as I was passing the second truck, and I was able to see ahead, so I knew there wasn't a vehicle coming. What I couldn't really see was that side of the road was relatively heavily drifted. And I remember seeing that. I kind of drove around those drifts in the morning, and I'd forgotten about it. But anyway, so I got into an area where the drift was heavy enough that it was trying to pull me off the road. And it would have pulled me off over on the left side, so I wouldn't have, I don't believe I would have hit anybody, but I would have been off the road there. So I accelerated, and I kept my wheels turned, basically like I was drifting, and I was able to stay stable through the drift. It was a large area too, probably, I don't know, it felt a lot longer than what it probably was, but 2 or 3 seconds of having to basically do a drift move. When I say drift, what I mean is that I'm steering my wheels a direction different than what I am actually traveling. And so I'm drifting. I'm not really in full control. Well, I guess I am, but the tires don't have the contact on the road like they should have. And what's maneuvering me is the snow. The stickiness of the snow, the viscosity of the snow is what's maneuvering me. And so my tires are more like a rudder at that point. They're not like tires, they're like a big rudder. So you've got to, when you're doing this, you have to be really careful, because once your tires eventually catch on something, well, if there's something that has friction, that can flip you over. That can really mess you up. On this road, there's not much of a chance I was going to hit anything that had friction on it. So, but I got through that. That was scary. That was scary, my friends. When the weather is bad, there are a lot of times that I'll take this road. I don't go all the way into Maybell, though. By the way, there's one of these cool cabins. I don't know if you can see it or not. You might be right on the edge of your view. Probably can't see it. It looks like an old schoolhouse. I don't think you can see it. I could be wrong. You might have caught a glimpse of it. Oh yeah, this is very pleasant. I'll probably go back over 9 Mile later on today, and it won't be as pleasant as this. This is very nice. After yesterday, it's nice to have some blacktop. I wouldn't say, yeah, there's some older structures down there too. And a lot of the cabins are that way. The cabins are nearby newer structures. So probably if the property changed hands at some point, the new owners, or maybe the people that owned it, just built newer additions and left the old buildings standing, which I think is really cool now because these buildings are just really neat looking. And this valley is really neat looking. You're looking at one of them. I believe this is part of the hogbacks. If it's not part of the hogback, it's the same thing though, because that's basically a hogback. And a hogback, I think the best way to characterize it, it's a big rocky area that's been uplifted. So after a few years of it being uplifted like that, the erosion washes away all of the movable material and leaves the rocks. So you have this rocky ridge that runs along kind of like the spine of a hog. I think that was the idea of a hogback. There we go. There's some cool cabins. I hope you could see some of those. There's like 4 or 5 there. Outbuildings, barns. And I think there's some on the other side of the road here. And there's some more. Yeah, I hope you can see those. I do have the camera zoomed in just a little bit because I think that it gives it gives better video quality. It's like it captures the depth better. It seems to me that that's the case. But it does cut out the width of the field of view. So like everything, if you trade one thing off, there's a cost to getting something. I don't think that is an old cabin. You may or may not have seen that, but it is a cabin-built wood structure, but it looks like a modern. Yeah, both of those look modern, the wood buildings. I can take my 4-wheel drive out. Could have probably taken it out a long time ago. This is really a neat road. I really, really like this road. For people that are driving through, I've noticed that there are a lot of out-of-state people that take this road, and they're usually heading down towards Meeker, and it's a good way to cut a few miles off of the trip to Craig if you're trying to get to the interstate and you know about this road and you're coming from the west. Unless you just want to see Craig, there's really no point. Blowing my nose, yes. There's really no point in going through Craig. Unless you need gas or food or something, you just want to see Craig. But I think a lot of people use this as a shortcut to get around Craig, and I understand that. I'm not offended. There's a little shortcut in southern Colorado more on the Front Range, and maybe not all the way south. I mean, maybe mid to South Colorado. Let me see if I can remember. Yeah, Salida. So you go into the town of Salida. I think the highway is 287. Oh, well, I actually don't remember that. But you go into Salida and you turn east and you're going down the Arkansas River Canyon, heading to, is it the Springs? No, that's up higher. You're heading to Pueblo? In that area. You're in that area anyway. But as you leave Salida and you're going through these little towns that are just built right in the canyon, really cool towns, you'll see a town called Cotopaxi. And that's pretty much how it's spelled, Cotopaxi. And this used to be, I thought it was a really cool find, but on the west side of Cotopaxi, there's a little side road that you can turn off of the highway. You're on the side road, and it will take you to another highway heading south, which will drive you down. You get in on that highway, I can't think of the highway, but you'll go through a town of Westcliff, which is a neat little town. It's a really cool town built on the sage with an awesome view of, I think it's the Sangre de Cristo mountain range. Or is it the San Juans? If anyone knows, please comment about this video, well, obviously. So that little shortcut will save you about 10 or 15 miles. But not only that, it's scenic. And I like it because it takes you up in the junipers, these really aromatic trees. Smells really good there. Maybe not this time of the year. Maybe this time of the year it's just, winter kind of stifles that. But that is one of those little tiny shortcuts this is kind of that way. This is a much better shortcut though. You really are saving quite a bit of time. You probably save an hour. Not only that, but you don't have to go over 9 mile, which can sometimes be pretty bad. I don't think today 9 mile is going to be at its worst, but I think it will be snowier than this for sure. My feeling, I don't know for sure. I'll find out later on today. But I really love the little side roads. And so when I thought of having a name for this channel, Backroads of Colorado seemed like a really good fitting description for what I do. I'm definitely not like riding shotgun. He takes less used roads, but he's thinking like a trucker, not really thinking like a tourist, maybe, or maybe he is, but he still has to deal with his truck. And some of the roads that I go on, although that guy's a good driver, I'm certain he wouldn't have any trouble on most of the roads that I go on. Maybe some of them, but then again, maybe not. I really hate getting on a muddy road. So as much as I can, I stay off of dirt roads, and unless they're frozen or dry. If they can be damp, that's fine. I like that. If they're not dusty, that's great, but I don't like mud. But my criteria is a little bit different. But I do like the little back roads. Some of them are worse than others. Some of them aren't really what you would call a true shortcut. And I take a lot of roads like that in the summertime, where they're maybe not much of a shortcut, but they do cut the highway time down considerably. And if I'm still doing this in a couple of months, you'll probably see some of those roads. What a pleasant day out here. Let's see. So up here, I believe this is Highway 64. If we were to turn right, we would go into Rangeley. And that might be an interesting trip one of these days to shoot over to Rangeley. It's quite a ways. It's quite a ways. And by the way, this was County Road 7. I had to look in the mirror to remember to keep track of the county roads. We went from 57 Moffat County to 7 Rio Blanco County. The hills in front of us are roughly north-south, and they're part of the Grand Hogback. Highway 13 runs down this side of that hogback all the way to I-70. And there's a little gap right here in the hogback. As you can see, the juniper-covered hill on the horizon to the left and the juniper-covered hills on the horizon to the right, I believe were linked at one time. The White River runs through this area. I have a feeling that this could have been a lake at one time, the area that Meeker inhabits, and some of the highlands out south of Meeker. Discount tire store. Did you see that? If you didn't see that, there's a yard where they shred tires. They've got one of those big monstrous tire shredders. At this point, we're passing through what I think was probably a natural dam at one time. I have absolutely no proof of any of this, but what I can say is that the hills, there's basically a ring of mountains around a Meeker, and down in the bottom of the ring there's a lot of sedimentary, washed rock, river rock. So, but that doesn't mean that this was a lake. It just looks to me like it would have been a good place for a lake. So, maybe not. And while I'm interested in geology, I'm not college trained. I don't know what, where that gets somebody nowadays to be college trained. But I think in the scientific fields, I would hope anyway, that in the scientific and the medical fields, that there is less woke corruption going on. I understand in the rest of the college, they make up degrees for stupid people that are just going to be useful idiots, well-paid useful idiots, that inhabit occupations like, I don't know, HR, human resources. That's probably the number one ridiculous job that colleges turn people out to do. And then any related field like that, which might be which might be social services type degrees and so forth. But I think that typically for scientific work, and we get it, go through Meeker if you've never been through Meeker. If you've never seen Meeker from the south to the north, actually from the east to the west, it's laid out more east to the west than it is south to the north. So this is your chance to see it in the most dreary time of the year that we're going to have. Even mud season isn't as dreary as this, because during mud season, most of the snow, the dirty snow, has melted. So anyway, to finish that thought, I believe that most scientific fields of study, I hope anyway, I don't know that I hope that they are not infected with wokeness the way everything else in this world is infected with wokeness, including religion. Got a bunch of woke Christians that believe in communism. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, you got to hand it, you have to hand it to the leftists. They know how to deceive people. They are definitely good at that. Well, this was a really pleasant drive. I'll have to do this drive again when we can actually see the horizon. And I really wouldn't mind doing this drive again when it is spring. It's just, there's a lot of interesting things. There are a lot of interesting things about this drive that change from season to season. Yeah. Oh yeah. I've noticed something here. When I get here this time of day, high school kids are here and they're annoying as hell. I don't particularly like them. Okay. All right. We're good. If you're driving somewhere, drive safe. See you next time.